Good morning. Good morning. It is Wednesday, January 21st. First, I want to welcome you to City Hall and your Los Angeles City Council. Mr. Clerk, I do believe we have a quorum at this time. Could you please call the roll?
Blumenfield, Bonner, Buscaino, Sodin, Ingleton, Fuentes, Huizar, Correzco, Corin, Labons, Martinez, O'Farrell, Parks, Price, Wesson. 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Okay, first order of business.
Approval of the minutes.
Martinez moves, Price seconds. Next.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Huizar moves, Correct seconds. That brings us where?
Mr. President, there's a request from the Department of Building Safety to receive and file item 1G inasmuch as there was a departmental error and the lien was rescinded. They'd further like to continue items 1A, H, and J.
Okay,
that would be for 2 weeks to February 4th.
Okay, so without objection, that'll be the orders where it relates to those items.
Very good, sir. There's also requests from members to continue item 23 to February 20th and item 26 to this Friday, ordered. January 23rd.
So ordered. Cards?
Well, for items 1 through 11, sir, we do have cards on 1, 2, 3, and 9. 1, 2, 3, and 9.
Okay, let's prepare to vote on the Mr.
I'm okay. Next series.
Mr. Clerk, did you want to say something? Okay, let's prepare to vote on the remaining items. Let us open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That brings us to items 12 through 22.
Yes, sir. There are items for which public hearings have been held.
Mr. Labonge.
Mr. Bonnet.
Item 17.
17 for Mr. Bonnet.
It's 18, isn't it? Michael?
No, it's 17.
All right, I'll do 18 then, so we're close.
Oh.
18 for Mr. Labonge.
I want you to do this one.
Any other specials, members? I don't see any. Let's prepare to vote. Mr. Clerk.
Mr. President, there's been a request from member to send items 15 and 16 forthwith, sir.
Okay, well, let's vote on it, and we'll do it. Let's prepare to vote. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
And what were the items for?
15 and 16, sir.
Okay, forthwith on those items. That brings us where?
Mr. President, that brings us to items 23 through 32. There are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay, so without objection, those items are now before this council. Mr. Parks?
Could I have 30, 31, and 32 special and handle them together?
No problem. So that is 30, 31, 32? Okay, we'll take them all up together. Okay. Do we have cards?
Yes, sir. We have cards on items 24, 27, 29, 30, and 31.
Okay. Do we have anything left?
Yes, sir, we do. I believe items 25 and 28 remain before you.
Okay. Let's prepare to vote on those items. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Okay, I've been informed there's a card on 23, so we have to vote?
No, sir. Council continued that item on the onset to February 20th.
Okay. That brings us where?
Mr. President, that brings us to items 33 through 37. There are items scheduled for closed session. Would you like to hold them on the desk?
At this point, why don't I hold them until the chair arrives? So let's hold them, and that brings us to what portion of today's program?
That would bring us to presentations, sir.
Mr. Labonge, are you ready? Okay, now, Mr. Labonge, we're going to defer to you for our first presentation of the day. Mr. Labange, the floor is yours.
Get up here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the great ones of our media community here in television. He's a cameraman for many, many years. He's retired just this last July. But for 43 years, Ron Price has been the man behind the lens for KCAL, KCOP, and a few others in between, including KNXT, now KCBS. Let's give a big hand for Ron Price. And just as I go, because I know Ron would want me to do this, a hand for Stephen Coleman right there, behind there for 7, and also for Marvin Stone over here, and then Patrick Killinger right there.
Yeah.
And Juan, good to give a big shout out for Juan. These are the cameramen and women of Los Angeles who capture the news. And when I learned that he was retired, I said, okay, I'm retiring too, forcefully, but I'm retiring too. So I want to take every moment I can to honor the people who did greatness. And the camera person has that role to try to capture the moment and to get the news. And sometimes reporters are a little have special peculiarities. Is that the right word there? You got to work with a.
They have peculiarities.
Yeah, they have to work with it. And then also us politicians have those too. You got to catch us. I remember once David Goldstein,
Most of them talk too much.
Most of them talk to the reporters. Yeah, but I want to say more about you. But I was standing right over there, and there was David Goldstein, the Channel 2 action guy, looks for everything. I said, David, when are you going to have that full report on the county program he was looking at? And we're working on it. Council meeting ends, we adjourn, I'm walking out. David Goldstein pulls out of this, Labange, what about this? He was investigating me, but he was lying there. And his poor cameraman, Carl Green, who we've honored earlier, felt so bad, but he had to capture the shot. That all being said, we thank you and your team of photographers who really capture Los Angeles and bring it up close and personal. It's so nice to have all your family down here, and I think it's very special with your family being here and your wife who's behind the lens. I like the family, not far from the apple to the tree, but all the work that you've done, as you say, started in 1971 at KCOP, and then you went to KCAL, Channel 9, and then when you gave birth to KCAL, because you were old KHJ, all these names. You had 29 photographers you hired as the department chief, which is so important. Knew they wanted to work. And he had a great opportunity to interview 4 presidents, President Reagan, President Ford, President Carter, and President... I did. Jerry Duffy was a president?
Yeah,
no,
no,
with Jerry Duffy. I misread it. I knew that, too. I did that for you to make sure you're listening.
And President Wesson also.
And President Wesson.
Interviewed him.
He's the 4th president. That's where it's going. President Wesson traveled to Japan and to Korea and did all this. And he also was operation manager for a brief time for another broadcasting firm, but has come back to Columbia Square. And now they moved out to Studio City, where they're there, and did all that. And I remember in 2007, we had this horrible fire, 1,200 acres in Griffith Park. And Ron was covering the news right in front of the observatory. And as you know, whenever there's a challenge in our districts, members, we are in our districts. I was in the district. I was dead tired. I was walking up the East Observatory Road, and all I heard is Ron from a distance. I got Tom. I got Tom. I got Tom. I didn't know what he was saying. He took his headset off, put it on me, and then I was talking to Chambers.
Pat Harvey.
Pat Harvey and
Rick Chambers.
Rick Chambers describing the activities of the day to capture the moment. And then afterwards, you offered me a union card to try to get into the union because we were on TV so long describing it. You're truly an angel in the city of angels. You have a beautiful family that's here. And I just wanted to, on behalf of Mayor Garcetti and all our city council, our president, and the great camera members of our field teams from all our television stations, to salute Ron Price here on this day, 2015. Congratulations.
Thank you, Tom.
Good job.
You know, Tom, I just want to say to Ron and to all of your colleagues, you guys are class acts. And I know we on the council, we feel a connection with each and every one of you. So we're going to miss you. I mean, just like you've been smiling here all morning, he does that. He would do that when he was at work. So you will be missed, and we wish you the best. And you did a good job. You were a true pro. So anyway, let's give it up for Ron one more time, and then maybe we can get Ron
Thank you
to
very
say
much.
a few words.
I wouldn't have gone 43 years without a good support group. My wife, Mary Lou, 48 years we've been married.
All
My
right.
2 daughters, Shannon and Kelly. My son-in-laws, Troy and Ryan. My 2 grandsons, Jake and Zach. My other grandson, who's off at school right now and couldn't be here, Austin. And my best friends, Bonnie Vincent. They've all been with me. To all my buddies in the media, thank you very much. And to the members of City Council, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Ron, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. That's very much. Good job, man. We'll take a picture. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Labange, I want to break the rules real quick. I want to ask Pete to go to your chair or go up there with you.
Come here so you get a better shot.
Yeah, we want to get the
And
better
Pete Demetriou,
shot.
one of the truly good guys.
Good.
Because Pete's been around the block a little bit too. Pete?
You know,
You got to say Mr.
Ron,
President first.
Mr. President, Ron Price was there ahead of me when I started out as a very young reporter back in the late 1970s. And if you were coming in, you looked to this man and you respected him. Why? He was always there. He was always impartial. Most important, from his perspective and the technical perspective, he had that ultimate ability. He always got the shot. I never saw Ron out of position. I never saw Ron out of breath, except maybe once or twice during a fire. But when it came to getting the shot, the essential part of what a news story was, Ron was always there, and you looked to him. And I would tell younger reporters and young camera people, if you're at an event and you see Ron, don't worry, you're in the right place. If you don't see him, worry, you're missing the story. This is what it's all about. Visuals, images, news that may appear. It takes a human being with an eye, with a brain, with emotion, and with talent to make it happen. That was Ron Price, then and now. Ron, thanks for being
All right. Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Ron. And Mr. Labange.
And one more shout out, because every time he speaks up, stands up to speak, Councilman Price, I know you're going to be thinking of me.
Every time. Mr. Weezar. Again, thank you. Thank you, Ron. Mr. Weezar, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I can't do it as animated as Tom. All right. Thank you very much. Just want to let everyone know that anybody thinking of submitting any of their plans to the planning department right now, you're going to have to wait about an hour or so. They're all here. Mr. President, I'm very happy to be standing here with the planning department, the men and women who do remarkable work for this great city of ours that is going under tremendous transformation as we speak. And, you know, every once in a while, a great city gets to ask itself what direction it wants to go in. And I think we are at that point in this moment. And a lot of where we go depends upon the men and women behind me who are planning the future of our city. And today we have the great honor of thanking someone who will be retiring and someone who committed a good portion of his professional career to the city of Los Angeles to make sure that we had done the work necessary to serve our constituents in the planning department. And today we are announcing the retirement of Alan Bell, the Deputy Director of Planning. Let's give him a big round of applause. Now, when I heard he was going to retire, I, like many of you who are probably thinking right now, he looks too young to be retiring, right? Aren't we all thinking that? I think about 80% of my staff said the same thing when we heard the news. And his last day will be Friday, January 23rd, 2015, after 35 years of city service. Mr. Bell's upcoming rest and relaxation is well deserved. And Alan has been a tireless worker for the betterment of the city and its planning and development regulation. I first met Alan when I got elected in 2005. I served on the Plum Committee at that time, and I really took notice of him because it seemed whenever there was a particularly thorny issue, Alan would be speaking to our committee, presenting either good news, bad news, but always creative but always a creative and innovative solution. So I want to thank Alan not only for the work he has done, but certainly not being afraid to step up and tackling some of the most difficult issues we had to deal with in this city. He earned a reputation as a creative problem solver early when he first started. In the 1990s, he was one of the key planners driving the preparation and adoption of the city's general plan framework. That's the city's strategy for managing the city's long-range growth in population, housing, and jobs. After this accomplishment, Alan served for a decade in the department's code study section, preparing amendments to the city's zoning code and providing leadership and direction on innumerable policy discussions. But most notably, Alan is rightfully known as the architect of the Adaptive Reuse Ordinance. This is a far-reaching zoning code effort that facilitated the conversion of underutilized historic commercial buildings to housing, which has resulted in billions of dollars being invested in downtown Los Angeles. Now, a lot of people take credit for this ordinance, but we can all attest that Alan, along with his staff, were there writing the actual words of this ordinance, and he certainly should be commended for doing a remarkable job. Thank you so much for that, Alan. As a senior planner for the Code Study section of planning, Alan spent much of his career tasked with solving LA's most vexing planning concerns, as I mentioned, whether it was the regulation of outdoor advertising, medical marijuana collectives, community care facilities, Mr. Englander, and many other land uses. Alan has had his hand in most of those issues. He has won multiple awards for these efforts from the American Planning Association and other organizations. And a little over 4 years ago, Alan was made the Deputy Director of the Planning Department. And in this role, he drafted the department's Blueprint 21011, which recognized the department to implement a one project, one planner approach, and to create a new policy planning division, and to launch geographic coordinated teams and enhance community involvement. To culminate a truly amazing career, Alan had the vision and leadership to help launch the City of Los Angeles' multi-year effort that has become Recode LA, the first comprehensive rewrite of the city's zoning code since 1946. And for these reasons and many more, we are here today to thank Alan for his work, to wish him much relaxation in his retirement, but more than anything else, to really stand up here before the City of LA and tell Alan that we really appreciate all the work and dedication that you have given to your job. You have made the lives of Angelenos much better for your work, and for that we congratulate you. Once again, congratulations, Alan Bell.
Alan, you are a good man, and you will be missed. With that said, I'd like to call on Mr. Englander, the tireless Mr. Englander.
Yes.
Bonin is rubbing off on you.
Yeah, I know. In a good way. I can't think of words to describe the depth of knowledge that you have brought to the city and what you've done. It's unparalleled. It's unprecedented. You have made such an incredible difference. It's rare to work with, and you've got an incredible team behind you, and I say your team because you've truly been the leader that I've worked with in the planning department for so many years on so many issues. And you're brilliant. The city this is a tremendous loss, your retirement, to all of us. So I'm in mourning. So this is bittersweet. You've deserved it, and you deserve only the best because you are one of the most honest, ethical, focused, brilliant people that I've had the opportunity to work with. And I think we're all, and I speak for, I know my staff and Phyllis, who sends her best as well, who I know you worked with for many, many, many years. And she retired recently as well, who speaks so highly of you and cherishes all your work and everything you've always done on behalf of the people. And you've always looked at all these difficult issues, and you've been that point person on so many of these, not just internally, as most people here know, but actually out in the community, leading these discussions and meetings, showing up to these very contentious, and I will tell you, there are no harder decisions or community-based focus gatherings of opposition, if you will, until you decide to make a change on somebody's street and or in their neighborhood, and that brings people out. And you've been on the forefront of many of those discussions and leading those efforts and listening to the people and making very good decisions and helping us as an extension of our staff. Say, God bless you for everything you've done, and may you live a long, happy, healthy life in your retirement, because you deserve only the best. God bless you. Thank you, Alan.
Well said, Mitchell Englander. Now let's go to Mitch O'Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Huizar, thank you so much for bringing Alan Bell forward so that we can all express our gratitude for his incredible service to the city. A man of very few words, and maybe that's why he's gotten so much done in his career. Well done. I love that you hone right in on what most people feel can be accomplished in the city, and that is people who disagree on many, many things realize that it's wise to work on historic preservation while focusing on development of our commercial corridors. I think you bring a solid depth of being, of sensibilities to this career that has influenced this department very positively. And I also want to take the moment just to commend the entire department, since most of you are here, for the outstanding work you do every day under extremely challenging circumstances. I know that my office feels the positive impact with our relationships with everyone in the planning department, considering the challenges that the 13th District faces in Hollywood and beyond. You know, these are not easy times. This is an era in Los Angeles that is seeing unprecedented growth. So, Alan, thank you for steady guidance to help poise the city to be able to handle the kind of unprecedented growth and development that we're seeing. That's the guidance of a steady hand that will be felt for years to come. So thank you for helping set us on a very steady course for growth well into the future. And it's a sad day. You know, the city isn't ready for you to retire, but it's not about the city. It's about you. And so I also join in the chorus of wishing you very well into the future, and enjoy your next adventure, because you have many, many ahead of you. You're clearly very young. So enjoy yourself. And again, thank you for your years of service to the city of Los Angeles.
Mike Bonin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to differ from my colleague, Mr. O'Farrell. This shouldn't be about you. I don't want you to go. I'm standing to object. I'm objecting to your leaving on several grounds. Okay. First ground is I object to anybody retiring after 35 years when they look younger than I do. That's just patently offensive. The second is, you ain't done, man. We got Recode LA. You're going to leave before we update or certify a Venice local coastal plan? Come on, that's a planner's dream. All those community meetings? I can't believe you're taking off. But the third reason I object is because you leave a huge, huge hole in the planning department and in the city. It is a department that has been gutted and is understaffed. The department probably should be 4 times the size that it is. And when you go, they need to fill not just one slot, but they need 4 or 5 people to fill the void that will be left. Your public service has been marked by a number of different things. It's been marked by a sensitivity to community. You can actually talk to neighborhoods, although you probably get talked at more often than you talk to. You've been calm and you've been steady, and you do good planning. And you try to make the incredibly complex competing interests of citywide needs and neighborhood concerns and city imperatives balance out. And that's a huge credit. It's a huge loss. So I reiterate, I object.
Tom LaBonge.
Thank you, and Mr. Weezer, for your leadership always. Land use is so important as the city was founded 233 years ago and how it was done. And there was planners, and you could think how important it is because the fight between what someone wants to do and what they should do. But I talked to, first of all, Renee Weitzer, who's in the field right now checking out a zoning issue, and she says you were the most responsive person that she's had to deal with in the planning department, which is our whole key, whatever we are. We're in a public building, we're public representatives. To be responsive is the key. And the pressure and the power, as I went through the Wilshire district today and see these great little homes being taken down for new style homes, and the conflict that exists, that all is, it's not an easy task. But I appreciate the body here. When I pulled up, they were making a 1966 cop show outside. They had all kinds of old cop shows, and I thought of Jack Webb and This Is the City and Dragnet, and I thought, what if our planners were like that? You know, in the sense of having the focus on how important that you are, because we love police and fire, which I do. I love all city employees. But the planners are so important because it determines whether there's crime in an area. The drive for everybody hated mini malls, and I remember when I first started, Alan, when you got here, had to be because we needed parking, because we didn't want parking in the back, because parking in the back, it was not lit, and there was crime, and there was an alley, and et cetera, but to try to figure this out. And the advent of new thinking, which is so important, and I see the Lisa and her work that you have done, but Michael, your work, and the development of, I wish I could name you all, your first week on the job, we were together, which was so good out on Wilshire Boulevard in Normandy. How many years have you been working for the city now? How many years for the city? 14, so 14 years ago. What a great contribution you have made, all of you together. But Michael, developing the senior lead planner, which we need to support more of, members, because land use is an accelerant for heavy community conversation. And as Mr. O'Farrell articulated the unprecedented growth that is taking place, it has to be done right and properly. I don't want to make a violation, Mr. City Attorney, but there is a building out on Sunset Boulevard which was abandoned for a long time, but someone sued and stopped because they were off a few feet or whatever it was, down the street on the old Sears. I'm just making some points. That needs economic development. I thought about all the people who didn't have jobs because that job was stopped. You know, so all this needs to be balanced and integration with the Transportation Department, the MTA, but to serve for 35 years, Alan, and to serve well and be able to do the good things. And also, often when I see the planners, I think of Mike Carey. And Mike Carey was a colleague of yours, who's a great planner, but was the first victim of AIDS in our city family that I knew of years ago. So all this is important to remember who went before us and who went back, and enjoy the life that you have in serving the city, and a great retirement on behalf of Renee Weitzer, Planning Deputy, and the whole 4th District staff, and the constituency who loves you as well. Thank you.
Mr. Weezer, back to you.
Thank you very much. I forgot what I was going to say because Mr. Koretz's tie is a bit distracting over here. Stop, just a bunch of stop signs, huh? DOT. That's the wrong retirement. That's DOT, I think. That's no. Thank you very much. And we keep mentioning how Alan doesn't look as old to be retiring, but that means you didn't work as hard because you didn't really grow old in this job. No, you certainly did. And what I will miss is in committee when we're talking a lot of crazy talk, and then you're trying to get us all back on the same page. We look at you, that stoic look that you have, and and then just set us all, calm us all back down, and tell us that the reality we really live in. So thank you for that. Next, we're going to have the General Manager of the Planning Department, Michael LeGrand.
Hello, council members. Thank you for honoring Alan today. A few quick words about Alan. One thing he embodies is public service. There's never been a constituent who hasn't had access to Alan. Whatever your motion, the issues that you're wrestling with, Alan was there to give creative solutions to your communities and to make sure he serves the mayor and the city council to the best visibility. The good news about Alan retiring is he's raised a lifetime of planners behind you. He's mentored so many staff. He's been available to give them counseling, give them guidance, and teach us all how to use the zoning code to better the city rather than hinder the city. His creativity in responding to the issues that Los Angeles is facing, moving us forward in a sustainable manner, and the way he's always looking for solutions, even in the toughest moments, has taught me a lot. Alan's been my right-hand person for over 16 years. Everywhere I went, I brought Alan with me. He's not bringing me to retirement, but he did promise to come back for lunch. He is a citizen of LA, so I do see commissions in his future, so we can definitely make sure to mention to Mayor Eric Garcetti about some future appointments for Alan. But we're really excited to see this chapter of Alan's life, how happy he is, and how many friendships he still has in the department. We'll always have a desk and a zoning code ready for his interpretation, and look forward to the next chapter in his life. Now, with no further ado, Alan Bell.
Alan, before you start, the man with the stop sign tie has pressed his button to speak right before you. Mr. Koretz.
Well, I'd like to say that I have this tie on to ask you to stop this thought and not retire. In reality, I have to admit, I was at a little event at Norm's to ask that we stop the demolition of that historic property. But I just want to say, I know my staff was very sorry to hear that you're going to go. I know everybody in City Hall is, because you've done such an amazing job for so many people. And if I could get you to stop, I would, because we still need you there. But if it's time to retire, I wish you all the best in retirement. You certainly deserve it.
So, I guess this is my last few comments before this body. Just for old time's sake. I want to thank Councilman Huizar for those kind words. I'm not sure that I deserve those, but they certainly were kind, and I certainly want to share my my thanks with Councilman Englander, all the councilmen that I have worked with over the years. Public service truly is a privilege. It's an honor to be able to work for this great city of Los Angeles. It was a dream of mine, quite frankly. As a very young boy, I knew that I wanted to be a planner at the age of 12. I actually started with the Aging Division, what was now the Department of Aging, in 1980. Although I said that I wanted to become a planner, I wasn't quite sure that planning truly was the field for me, because I was the kind of guy that wanted to get things done, and I wasn't sure that all these dreamers really was the place to really actually get something done. So I considered myself to be a Johnny-come-lately, actually, to the field of land use planning. So it took me about 10 years to figure out that this is where I belonged, and I think it was certainly the best decision that I made. So getting things done, that's certainly what the planning department is all about. I want to thank my kindred spirit of 15 years, because we share the same sensibilities, of trying to harness the powers of land use and planning to benefit the public. Michael Legrand, thank you so much for your confidence in me and your friendship for over 15 years. It's truly been a privilege. And I certainly want to thank the people that I work with, the people behind me, Los Angeles City Planning Department. It truly is about the institution. The institution will continue out with the old and with the new, and I think that this council should be very proud of and have a great deal of confidence in the extraordinary men and women of the Planning Department and the service that they have performed and will continue to perform. Approve the budget, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Alan. Let me get you a resume here. So, Alan, here with Michael Legrand and my council colleagues, it's our honor to present to you this resolution thanking you for the work you've done for the City of Los Angeles, for your commitment, and also for the mentoring you have done to other individuals and sharing your knowledge, your life experience, so that as people do move on, that continues in the department. You've done a great job, including my guy, Tanner Blackman, who works in my deputy director. So thank you so much, Alan, on behalf of the City of Los Angeles. A job well done.
Please, no applause. Let's begin our business. No applause. Mr. Herman, no applause. You're disrupting the meeting now. Mr. Parks, it's my understanding, Mr. Parks, it's my understanding that you have members from the family that are here. So I would think for your reward motion, so why don't we move to Mr. Parks's items, which I believe are 30, 31, and 32.
Yes.
And if I could get everybody to be shh, we could be respectful at this point in time. Mr.
Colleagues,
Parks?
Yes, colleague, thank you very much. Colleagues, we're going to deal with 30, then 32, and then 31 because we have detectives and family here. If we can ask Detective Cuevas, along with family members, the mother of our victim, Tawana Lee, to come up at this time and give us an overview of this case, and then the mother has a personal plea to make.
Yes, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, members of the council. My name is Detective Cuevas from LAPD, Criminal Gang Homicide Division. I'm here to tell you about Burt Crump Jr. On August 22nd, at approximately 6 p.m., 17-year-old Burt Crump Jr. exited a bus in the area of Normandy and Gage. Immediately after that, he was chased by an unknown suspect who chased him for about approximately half a block, and Burt Crump Jr. flagged down a passing motorist asking for help. As soon as he entered this vehicle, Burt Crump was struck by gunfire by this unknown suspect, also as the motorist as well. And 17-year-old Burt was killed due to the gunfire he received. So we're here asking for a $75,000 reward to help motivate the public, to help us find the suspect who killed Mr. Crump. And I have Ms. Tawana Lee, mother of victim Crump.
Thank you for this reward, helping to find the person who murdered my son. I really appreciate it. This is like a really rough time for me. I worked in this community for so long, working with families, and I need some help right now to find the person who took my only son's life. I can't sleep at night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Colleagues, we
Thank
also...
you for coming down.
Yeah, part of this reward is in behalf of Clifford Adolph Williamson, who was seriously injured in this shooting but survived. And so we ask that anyone that has information contact Detective Cuevas at 213-485-1383, and that's at the Criminal Gang Homicide Division. Thank you. Number 32 would ask Officer Mendoza, and he has two family members, the sister Rosa Gutierrez and the nephew German Contreras, but the detective will make the total presentation.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here representing the Los Angeles Police Department, but most importantly, I'm here representing the family of Miss Maria Elena Rivas, who was murdered on Monday, December 22nd, 2014 at approximately 6:30 p.m. Ms. Rivas, 62 years old, was walking home from the Ralph's supermarket located at the intersection of Adams and Vermont when she was approached by an unknown individual or individuals who then robbed her of her purse. During the commission of this attack, she was brutally stabbed and murdered. A passerby called 911, and Ms. Rivas was taken by ambulance to California Hospital, where she was pronounced dead. We have received very limited information, as no witnesses have been located or come forward to assist in identifying the perpetrator or perpetrators of this crime. We believe that a monetary reward of $50,000 may persuade witnesses who know the identity of the individual or individuals responsible for the death of Ms. Rivas to come forward. Your support of a City Council motion to approve this reward would be appreciated. Anyone with information can contact the Los Angeles Police Department Criminal Gang Homicide Division at 213-485-4341 or Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. Thank you.
Thank you. And then finally on item 31, we have a renewal reward motion on a case that occurred, let me get this straight, January 2014, in which Roshan Davis was stabbed as he was standing near the bus stop on the northwest corner of La Brea and Coliseum. Upon being stabbed, he ran away from the attacker towards an apartment he shared with his wife and 4 children. Upon reaching the back gate, he collapsed, transported by the fire department, where he passed away at the hospital from its injuries. We ask that we renew this reward, and that if there's any information that individuals call Sergeant Paul Schierhoff of the Criminal Gang Homicide Division, 485-4341, and I'd ask for an aye vote on these 3 reward motions.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. And we do have cards, and I will call them, but I want to thank the family for coming down. I know this is a very, very difficult time for you, and be assured we'll do the best we can here. But I have cards from Mr. Walsh. I have cards from Mr. Herman. Okay, members, let's prepare to vote on these items. Could you open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote?
13 ayes.
Those measures pass. Go to item 2. Sean Murphy, item 2, sir.
And Mr. President, there's a request to send those 3 items forthwith.
Okay, then that's what we'll do without objection.
Item 2, I'm supporting. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, let's prepare to vote on item 2. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Item 3, Mr. Walsh, item 3.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org or J. Walsh Confidential, and tweeting at Hollywood Dems. Number 3, again, concerns street lighting district. There was balloting pursuant to Proposition 218. You have done everything correctly. And again, I know you try to paint me as someone who gets up and says, "Oh, you're all a bunch of crooks." That's not me. You do a very, very good job on street lighting, especially in Hollywood, where before, when you had the carbon arc, we have the lights going off all the time. We haven't once for 24 hours in the past 10 years that we had not had proper street lighting in my area near Capitol Records. You're doing an excellent job. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Okay, let's prepare to vote on this item. Madam Clerk, if you'd open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
We are going to move to item 9. Mr. Murphy, this is your item again. Item 9. Sean, no applause. You're disrupting the meeting. No applause.
It's another item. Yes, Sean, I support this item. Another item.
Thank you, Sean. Let's prepare to vote. Let us open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
(24), Mr. Walsh. Item 24, Mr. John Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org or J. Walsh Confidential. Again, this is our friend Reap. What we've said, and anyone who watches this knows, anybody who protests their lien, who comes up here, and there are a number of liens here, 245 West 78th Street, anyone who gets up here and protests the rent escrow account, nobody does because they're guilty. People protest the liens because they're not guilty. What this is, incidentally, is if there's so many violations in your apartment that you're renting, and the landlord refuses to repair things, then the rent goes to the city, not to him. HollywoodHighlands.org, doing a great job.
Okay, let's prepare to vote on this item. Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, Mr. Krikorian, why don't we run through the closed session items?
All of those matters can be resolved in open session, Mr. President, unless members have questions or concern. They've all been considered by Budget and Finance, and the recommendations of the committee are before you.
Okay, well, let's go through. Mr. Clerk, why don't you read the items, and we'll vote on them?
Yes, sir. For item 33, in the case entitled Ulysses Gasca versus City of Los Angeles, there is a recommendation, to adopt the city attorney's recommendation. For item 34, in the case entitled State Farm General Insurance Company versus City of Los Angeles, there is a recommendation to expend $286,014.67 in settlement. For item 35, in the case entitled Wai Pang Wan versus City of Los Angeles, there's a recommendation to expend $2.5 million in settlement. For item 36, in the case entitled City Claims Against County of Los Angeles for excessive property tax administration fees for fiscal years 2006 through 2012, there's a recommendation to accept $883,243.04 in settlement. And lastly, for item 37, in the case entitled Town Hall Retail Center LP versus City of Los Angeles, there's a recommendation to accept $1 million in settlement.
Okay, thank you. So on those items, we'll vote on them together. Let us, Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
It's my understanding we have one ordinance. Item 10, why don't we vote on reconsideration? We have 12 members. So on item 10, let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, now let's actually vote on the item again. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay. Mr. Bonin, you want to go to, I believe it's item 17?
Ready?
The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for the indulgence of a few minutes to talk about this. Colleagues, I really wanted to draw your attention to this item. If our Vice President were talking about this, he'd describe it as a big deal with a little bit of profanity thrown in. This is one of the biggest deals in the city. This is one of the biggest projects in the city of Los Angeles. There is not a single one of you, I would wager, who has not gone through Los Angeles International Airport and felt embarrassed. There is not one of you who has not heard from constituents or out-of-town visitors that our airport looks like crap. There's not a single one of you, I bet, that has not been pressured by the LA Chamber of Commerce to stop listening to neighbors, stop listening to the local elected officials, and get stuff done to modernize that airport. Well, I want to tell you, we're going to bust a few myths today, and you're going to hear about it. One of the myths we're going to bust is the myth that we cannot have a world-class airport. Because we're building one, we're getting there, we're making progress, and these are some of the next phenomenal projects. The other myth I want to bust is that NIMBYs have stood in the way of progress at LAX and modernizing our airport. It's absolutely false. There was one project that neighbors of the airport opposed in a whole menu of LAX modernization projects. And all the projects you are going to hear about today, the Midfield Satellite Concourse, and a groundbreaking ground transportation plan that is going to change traffic, access to, and the passenger experience at the airport, has all been vigorously supported by the neighborhood. In a legal settlement 10, 12 years ago, the neighbors supported these projects. The surrounding cities supported these projects. There is no one I have heard of in the LA political culture or in the neighborhood that doesn't support modernizing Los Angeles International Airport. And the final bit of context on this is, when Mayor Garcetti and I ran for office, we both opposed the controversial project regarding the North Airfield. And we both championed everything else. And we said, when we get into office, let's move forward on the stuff that everybody agrees on, because it's billions of dollars worth of work. It's an incredible passenger improvement, and it's massively job creating. And so that's exactly what we've done. With this team and with the Board of Airport Commissioners, we decided to fast forward the good stuff. And so I'd like them to tell you about the Midfield Satellite Concourse and the ground transportation plan that is going to link up and complement the metro connection that is coming to that airport. We are going to have a world-class airport that is a first-class neighbor.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. President, council members. My name is Roger Johnson, Deputy Executive Director at Los Angeles World Airports. Thank you, Mr. LaBonge. We have a short presentation today. I want to discuss with you the action that's before the council, and then Mr. Doucette will discuss the ground access transportation system that is currently in the planning stage. What is before you this morning is a contract for the design and construction of the first phase of what we call the Midfield Satellite Concourse. The drawing you see in front of you with the white box off to the left is the Midfield Satellite Concourse site. This is the next major addition to the LAX development program. This will be a satellite concourse, the first one at LA that is not actually connected by roadway to the central terminal area. This concourse will provide 11 new gates, half of which will support the A380 and the new large aircraft. So this is much needed contact gates that will replace the poor service that we're providing the international carriers today out on the remote pad. So it's a very necessary job. So the project, and again, I'll rush through this one, is ultimately at build-out, we will have 22 gates. We're building 11 gates today. Primary reason for that is there are a couple of huge maintenance facilities that are in the way. Qantas is working on a new facility, and American Airlines is working on their planning. What you see on this drawing here is how the Midfield satellite will connect to the Tom Bradley Terminal. You see to the right where the Tom Bradley Terminal is, there is a small connection building that will be a connector, and through there will be an underground tunnel with a moving walkway that will connect to the new Midfield satellite concourse. So moving on, just to put things in perspective, this picture basically shows the overall capital development program now, describing in pictures what Councilman Bonin described as the transportation system. To the right is a consolidated rental car facility plus the connection to the Metro, Crenshaw LAX line and future Green Line extension, as well as an intermodal transportation facility and the people mover that moves into above ground people mover that will move into LAX. This just gives you a little bit of a close-up. The people mover will be a single line right now in planning. It's a single line that will run through the center of the terminal, and you see kind of these they're bridges, they're white lines that run north and south in the central terminal area. There will be several connections, stops, and those connections and stops will be connected to the terminals through moving walkways. But just to give you an idea, this isn't just going to be a bridge like the pedestrian bridges that you see today. The picture on the screen right here is a rendering of what a meter greeter area would be like if you got off the APM at the airport. This is just a rendering of what it might look like, and then you would actually go through the connection or the bridges with the moving walkway would look like this. So again, I want to stress today what we are asking you to vote on is the Midfield satellite with the connector tunnel to Tom Bradley. And now I'd like to have Mr. Doucette explain the public and commercial transportation system.
Thank you, Roger. And it's a real pleasure to be here today to talk about this program and how we're going to solve one of the long-standing issues in transit here in Los Angeles. We worked very collaboratively with Metro and with Councilman Bonin's office to actually develop this program and this plan that you see here today. Roger talked a little bit about the central terminal area and the terminus of that automated people mover and what goes on in the central terminal area. I'd like to focus on the items to the east, and this is really a comprehensive plan to ease congestion in the central terminal area and the surrounding communities, but more importantly, to connect this airport to the regional transportation system. What you see up there is the kind of the pinkish reddish line is the Crenshaw line currently under construction, which will be extended down Aviation Boulevard. It will also allow for the Green Line to be extended north, and it will have the terminus of those two lines where they meet is actually the 96th Street station and the interface for the airport. The slides going up, the first big blue bullet up there was the 96th Street station. The second slide was the bullet was to show the central terminal area. The one on the far right, the consolidated rental car facility. This is all passengers who come to LAX and rent a car will go out to that area. That's approximately 17% of activity at the airport. So if you can imagine taking that many passengers, getting them out of the central terminal area and all those buses and consolidating them in one location, it will have a tremendous impact on the streets surrounding the airport and in the central terminal area. To focus a little more specifically on the major components of this, the first item, as I mentioned, is the 96th Street Metro station that is currently being developed and planned by Metro. Once again, the pink lines are the Crenshaw line coming down to the airport. The green line is the extension of the Green Line coming to the north. Those purple dashed lines are the automated people mover system. So now when a passenger who comes in on transit simply gets off the station, goes up one level, and will be able to connect directly to an automated people mover system that will take it in about a 6 to 8 minute journey into the central terminal area with one level change. It will be an extremely convenient connection. One other component I want to point out is coming out of that building to the left is a small transit plaza. And that's going to be the relocation of the local buses, both Metro, Culver City Green Line buses, as well as the Santa Monica Blue Bus. That will provide connections from the regional light rail system to local communities.
You've got up. That's not forwarding. Appears to be. There we go.
Okay.
It's going to show you where the transit station is.
So once again, this development program is not just about connecting transit to the airport, but it's also about creating a seamless transportation hub for connections between light rail and buses throughout the community. I spoke briefly about the automated people mover system elevated. There's also the rental car facility to the left that's approximately 18,000 stalls and once again 17% of activity. We're also going to develop a commercial transit plaza there for our flyaway buses and other dedicated airport type buses. Once again, this is just a conceptual rendering of that, showing the elevated automated people mover system as well as the connection for those dedicated airport type bus facilities.
And the idea here is to take all of the commercial traffic right now that's coming into the central terminal area. It may be shuttle buses, it may be other kind of privately held buses, but to get that out of the central terminal area into this central transportation hub and onto the automated people mover to again reduce the car traffic into the area. So
why don't we just forward to this next slide is what we refer to as the Intermodal Transportation Center. That was the facility in the center of the diagram that's located just north of the Century Corridor hotel complexes. And this facility is to provide additional off-site parking for airport uses, employees, and to provide additional curb front for either shuttle buses or passenger pickup and drop off. So private vehicles can access this instead of going into the central terminal area. In conjunction, all of these items, and we can flip to the next slide, this is just a rendering of the curb front. All of these components will significantly improve the ground access in and around LAX and the surrounding communities. And we're in the environmental and planning process now, and are moving forward as rapidly as possible on that development.
we hope to release the notice of preparation for the CEQA work for the APM and the CONRAC within 2 weeks. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks. Let me just sort of recap it a bit. Colleagues, most of you have experienced or at least seen the new Tom Bradley International Terminal. Many of you have experienced or at least seen some of the new concessions at the airport. If the Bradley International Terminal is the remodeled living room of our airport and the concessions are the remodeled kitchen of our airport, this is the remodeled front door and the remodeled driveway and the remodeled bedrooms of the airport. What the airport is doing here is creating a fundamental reimagining of and transformation of the passenger experience at the airport. When the Midfield Satellite Concourse is done, no longer will anybody have to take a shuttle bus out to a remote part of the airfield to an obscure gate with minimal, if any, amenities. That will be a thing of the past. When the ground transportation plan is done, all of the shuttle buses that clog our central terminal will be consolidated into one system like they have in Boston and other airports, significantly reducing the congestion in our central terminal area. When the metro train gets there, there will be then a tram, not a shuttle bus, not a big schlep. There will be a tram that will take them from terminal to terminal around the airport and then to moving walkways. This is going to be an entirely different LAX, thanks to the cooperation of LAWA staff, Metro, the Mayor's Office, Board of Airport Commissioners, and I got to underscore again, the community, fully with LAWA on this and in full partnership on it. This is going to be something else. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Labange.
Thank you. And Mr. Bonin is a member of the Trade and Commerce Committee. Your efforts there have been excellent, as well as Mr. Buscaino and as chairman. This is so important for us in the future. And a timeline on this again?
We hope to have the first gates open for passenger use the first quarter of 2020.
2020. So this is so important as we build the future of Los Angeles. Tourism is so important. absolutely so important, and the ease that people have choices now. And with the modern aircraft, they can choose to go to Las Vegas or beyond, or to the Grand Canyon in Phoenix. We want everybody to stop at L.A., enjoy L.A., and then make their way through the Golden Triangle of the Grand Canyon, Las Vegas, Yosemite, San Francisco, and San Luis Obispo in between. So I just wanted to thank the staff. I really want to thank Gina Marie Lindsay. I think she's Mulholland-like. And as Mr. Bonin mentioned, the community, it's difficult when we have a city that grows, and our city has absolutely grown. I mean, I remember talking to John Ferraro, and there he was pointing out all the old airfields that were in the center basin, out in Burbank, right by where the steam plant is in Glendale. There was a Glendale airfield, the Burbank Airport we know, the Bob Hope, but over on Atlantic and right off the freeway there. Aviation was all over the place. And now it's all going to be put in such a special spot that will connect everyone and make it seamless, their experience to enjoy. But again, Mr. Bonin, and as you mentioned, the others, the staff that's out there, and Gina Marie Lindsay, and also I want to thank Mr. Garcetti, because I think he likes to make sure success happens with a collaboration. So that's the key, and I know that's Mr. Bonin's thought as well. So we'll see you there in 2020.
Mr. Krikorian.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to add to Mr. Labange's thanks because I've watched as this process has developed, and this has been when you get to the point of the pretty drawings and renderings, it all looks really easy, and it looks beautiful, and it's going to be great. And we know that this is going to be one of the most important economic engines for our city's future for generations to come. And this is a critical element in the modernization of LAX for the 21st century. And none of this could have happened without the orchestration and the diligence and the assertiveness and the efforts to find balance that have personified the efforts that Mike Bonin has demonstrated in this. And it has been through your leadership, Mike, on the Metro Board, on the Transportation Committee, and as the advocate for the 11th District that has made all of this possible. Because this has been stuck in the mud for so long. And there have been such intractable differences between different parts of our city's family that it really could not have happened without the orchestration that Mike Bonin has demonstrated. So congratulations, Mike, on getting all of us, our entire city, to the next level.
Mr. Bonin.
Go right ahead.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to make it very clear that what will be done in 2020 is the Midfield satellite, not the APM and consolidated rental car facility. So thank you.
And Mr. Bonin, I too want to congratulate you for your hard work, and I give a shout out to Bill Rosendahl for all that Bill did. And so, with that said, there are no more speakers. Let us prepare to vote. Let us open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Mr. Labange, I believe it's item 18.
Thank you. Mr. Reagan, you want to just come up real quick? Hey, Mark, wait just a second, will you? In working with Mr. Bonin, I know this went through committee. I think it's just some point that we should just give a brief on. Would you take the center table and staff on this issue? Unfortunately, people are using our public spaces, our public lands for dumping grounds, and this is given an ability with the approval of the city attorney to move forward with a way to maintain it better. Mr. Reagan, give us the 1, 2, 3 on this.
Well, good morning, council members. Kevin Regan, Assistant General Manager with the Department of Recreation and Parks. So my understanding of the item before you is that this is simply authorizing the city attorney to draft an ordinance that would make it basically illegal to bring bulky items to a public park and then leave them. It would also authorize the Department of Recreation and Parks to be able to pick up bulky items that are left in the park and dispose of them properly. And just for general knowledge, the definition we're using of a bulky item is any item that doesn't fit in the normal, like the blue bin that goes out on the street, the sanitation trash can. So any item that doesn't fit into one of those blue recycling bins is essentially considered a bulky item and could 65-gallon. My colleague from Bureau of Sanitation, 65-gallon collection bins. Anything that doesn't fit in those bins could be considered a bulky item. If it's left in the park, it could be disposed of by the Department of Recreation and Parks.
So, Mr. President, members, I thank you, Mr. Bonner, and I thank you. All of us could look for our areas. I've had a big, it was light, but a big couch way up on Magic Tree up there on Burbank Peak, which is surprising. But all that stuff should be removed. Parks should be preserved. Thank the Bureau of Sanitation, the Department of Parks and Recreation for this help here. Thank you.
Mr. Parks.
Could you just clarify, maybe I missed something. You say that if people leave it there, we can dispose of it. We're not encouraging them to bring the material there.
My understanding is that correct. So there's a difference between this ordinance and like illegal dumping.
Yes.
So for example, just bringing the bulky item to the park would not be allowed under this particular ordinance. Okay. So it's not.
But if they should leave it, we have the ability to store it and dispose of it. Because I just want to clarify, we're not encouraging people that that's where you take your bulky item.
Right, and just so also to clarify, the ordinances that are already in existence that prohibit illegal dumping of bulky items are still in effect, okay. So that's prohibited.
Okay, all right, just wanted to clarify that.
Right, we're not encouraging anyone to bring a bulky item.
Mr. Krikorian.
Thank you. I want to make sure I understand why this differs from typical illegal dumping. What this motion is calling for is making it illegal to bring the item to the park in the first instance, correct?
Correct, that's my understanding. Now, I did talk to Valerie's here, Flores from the City Attorney's Office.
Good. So just so I wanted to talk
called her. I thought I had and called her, so she's here to answer your legal questions.
Yeah, you knew where I was going with this. So, Valerie, if this ordinance were drafted so that the act of bringing a sofa to a park is itself illegal, then why must we have short-term storage? Why doesn't that sofa become illegal contraband the moment it's placed down in the park, and why can't we seize and destroy it?
Thank you. How we're contemplating the drafting of the ordinance would be to prohibit persons from bringing a bulky item into the park in the first place, but there will be no criminal penalty that attaches to that. It will be more to empower Rec and Parks Department or Bureau of Sanitation to remove and destroy the bulky item if it's in fact brought in. However, the ordinance will specifically state that persons may still be prosecuted under the California Penal Code and the City Municipal Code for dumping, but those offenses require intentional dumping. So they wouldn't really apply to someone who, let's say they're homeless and they dragged a mattress in to sleep for the night, but it wasn't really their intent to avoid landfill fees and dump a truckload of stuff off at the park. And we need that in the ordinance to make sure that people don't think of this ordinance as a free pass for dumping things in the park. But again, the purpose is not so much to create an additional layer of criminal penalties, but rather to empower our city departments to get that item, if it happens to find its way into a park unintentionally, out immediately.
Right. So I'm suggesting maybe the next can the audience be asked to please stop applauding in the middle of people's sentences?
Especially that's
it's
a
really
disruption.
Disruptive of our meeting, Mr. President.
And Councilman, just to clarify, we don't. When we remove these bulky items, we don't have to store them. They can be immediately removed and disposed of.
But that's not what the express language of the motion says. Short-term storage, and I want to avoid us getting sucked into the same limitations that we have to face because of Levant and otherwise. Right. So in my view, as soon as that couch is set down on the city park's grass, that should be subject to permanent seizure and disposal because it's illegal contraband as soon as it's put down.
The way the ordinance will be drafted, yes, that those bulky items will be subject to immediate pickup and destruction, no storage. However, under constitutional law, personal belongings, papers, passports, photographs, medicine, eyeglasses, wheelchairs, canes, if park personnel find those things unattended, they do have to, under constitutional law and case law, take them, store them, provide notice, but we are distinguishing between those sorts of items and bulky items.
Okay.
And bulky items will be immediately subject to destruction.
Great, because we haven't been able to draw that distinction otherwise. Bulky items on the sidewalk are still treated as personal items if they're there. So
Under the new ordinance that the council just instructed us to draft yesterday, a similar rule will be in place for sidewalks, and something bulky on a sidewalk.
Alleys, or
Yes.
in all of the situations where we've previously been constrained in our ability to guarantee the public safety and public health by these court decisions. That's my point. So I just want to make sure that this, and it sounds like we're on the same page, that this motion is not going to lead us down the road of having to add another Rec and Parks warehouse to store the couches and mattresses and shopping carts and so on that are left in the parks.
We are on the same page. Bulky
Okay.
items will be subject to immediate pickup and destruction.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mr. Bonnet.
I think everything I was going to say was clarified by the colloquy between Valerie and Mr. Krikorian, so we're good.
Labange.
I just want to say that people do drag things into our parks. In Cahuenga Pass, in Parkland, there were mattresses with shooting galleries and needles, and one of the ugliest things that I've ever seen. And that needed to be removed, and it was a county park, and they removed it immediately. And also, Valerie, could you just explain the special status Recreation Parks has, as their land is seen differently than other land because it's parkland?
Well, the difference between parkland and other public land is that parkland closes. But we are recommending that in order to ensure that we protect the constitutional rights of people to have store their small personal belongings, that we treat parkland similarly in terms of giving notice if items are seized and they're clearly personal items, and that they be stored for a very finite period, again, to protect the rights of homeless, but to balance that against keeping our parks clean and beautiful for everyone.
But also in the Hollywood Hills, where it's the Santa Monica Mountains, where it's a fire danger, anyone who's there is removed and their debris is removed immediately.
Right. Again, we will blanket the city between the ordinance we were directed to or requested to draft yesterday. It would apply to all public land in the city except parklands, and today's ordinance will deal with parkland. So the entire city, all public lands in the city will be blanketed by these two ordinances. And it will be the case also, not just as to bulky items, but as to flammable, dangerous, public safety threatening items. Those will also be subject. Right, those will also be subject to immediate removal and destruction.
Thank you for your excellent work as always in sanitation. Thank you, and Record Parks always. Nice haircut, Kevin.
I'm glad you recognize Mr. Labange. With that said, let's prepare to vote. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Let's move to item 29, called special by cards, Mr. Previn and Mr. Herman. Please come forward. Item 29.
Good morning, City Council, and that was very useful. I think getting rid of bulky items on that item 18 is a great choice.
On the subject, Eric.
Right. This is, as you know, some redevelopment money that's being applied to the account, actually, to city contract number, or it could be 120930, which has received $21 million since inception. And this is a joint force between the county and the city who are working on some of these very same issues involving homelessness, sir, which is why I raise it. And, you know, I looked into it a teeny bit, and this is the numbers in LA County on homelessness are devastating, as we all know. We just had a big count, and so folks are interested to figure out where we are specifically with those numbers. But I think we're looking for solutions for some of this homelessness. And, you know, there's something called the Emergency Response Team that will potentially get this some of this money, which is about $150,000 as I understand it. And there have been a lot of folks who I'm familiar with, Ms. Krisaloff from the county, who've been working on groups to try to apply this money wisely. I'm concerned about the emergency response times business hours. They are only open from 8 to 5 p.m. And, Mr. President, it is hard to understand how we can categorize emergencies into that time frame. And though obviously you can reach out to law enforcement or others if there's a situation that requires that kind of a response, I'm wondering if there's some way to earmark this money toward that extended hours program, because we really must not be in a state of zealously shuffling people who have absolutely nothing except for what they're dragging around out of our communities.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Herman.
It's very devastating to know that we continue to have a population of persons known to the city of Los Angeles as the homeless people who have been vulnerable by the transfer and appropriate fundings of AB 1290 funds for the account number 281215 in CD 15, which is Joe Busquiano's. Joe Busquiano put up a very beautiful bridge display, but yet the homeless problem of today is totally devastating, as the Sergeant of Arms would say to you and can relate on either side of this podium. But again, the restrictions of funding for development and community services in this council, and every councilman here is responsible. You have not provided homelessness issues as a redevelopment to our community. Instead, you've created a homeless problem in the city of Los Angeles. Mr. Englander doesn't care to listen because he has head down.
Stay on the subject.
And the subject is this. If the city of Los Angeles really wants to negotiate terms to help homeless people in redevelopment projects, I say that the FBI do an investigation thoroughly in and out because of the fraud and waste and abuse funded by this subject of approval by our mayor and those of you in this council that have continued to promote the ideas and the non-rational idea that today you still haven't done a damn thing for homeless people. What a way, America.
Thank you. Okay, let's prepare to vote. Let us open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
We're going to go to item 27. Mr. Walsh, Mr. Previn, item 27.
Is it on? It's Eric
Yes,
yes,
you're on.
thank you, sir. It's Eric Previn, county resident from District 3 and also a candidate in the Council District 2
On the
election with
subject.
Mr. Krikorian. Yeah, I'm just introducing myself, sir. Thank you. This is Mr. Price and Mr. Englander are doubling down on a reward, which I think is for the teardrop rapist crime, and so I think we support catching and apprehending whoever that individual is. What I would like to raise to the council in this category of rewards is, could it be conceivable for a kind of a policy by crime that would earmark specifically the amount, because I think there is a danger, if we don't have such a policy in place, of allowing these matters to be politicized. Obviously, Mr. Englander's today is not one of those, but there are instances where the sum that is provided in reward varies. And I think, for example, yesterday at Los Angeles County, there was a $10,000 reward for a brutal murder. And so when you compare that to either a $50,000 reward from last week or a $75,000, though we all are united in trying to apprehend these criminals, it would be useful if the council could come up with a sort of a simple rubric whereby we could have the feeling that the public could help out for crimes and be compensated if that's what the council feels is appropriate, but not on a case-by-case basis, but on, in fact, a sort of a consistent basis. I think that would be in the interests of everybody, law enforcement, the public, and, of course, this hallowed body. Thank you for your time.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org or J. Walsh Confidential, or tweeting at Hollywood Dems. Here is the teardrop rapist. As you know, a tear, the gang members tattoo a tear for every year they spend in juvenile detention. Now, as you know, this is $75,000 reward. It could be $75 million reward. Again, I've said over and over again, you've only been able to produce one reward that you have ever given out in the past 10 years, and that concerned a hit-and-run driver, a white man hitting another white man, and that was west of La Brea near Century City. I'm telling you, the way you bring up these relatives and torture them when there's no hope, because if anybody... Now, remember, these kids, these gang members, I taught in South L.A. for a quarter of a century. They had me as teachers in kindergarten. Everybody knows me in South L.A. And I'm telling you, as everyone knows, these rewards mean nothing because if anybody, and I'm sure there are dozens of people who know who the teardrop rapist is. If anybody squeals on the teardrop rapist, you've seen the shirt, snitches get stitches, he'll be from ear to ear, slashed from ear to ear, his throat. Nobody ever tries to collect these rewards because it's committing suicide. You know it, I know it, and I challenge anybody to get up here and give me some more rewards that were paid off in the last 10 or 15 or 20 years. HollywoodHighlands.org for the truth.
Okay. Mr. Parks, did you press your button? Okay, Mr. Herman. Would you start his time? Start his time.
You don't care about the public.
No, you're going to
You
speak
don't
to
care
the
about the
subject. No,
public.
speak to the subject.
Price and Englander relative to reaffirming the reward offer for sexual predators, and good timing because Mr. Englander can exactly explain what a sexual allegation is, a sexual predator is by
Stay
definition.
on the subject.
Such as Mr. Weezar. But dub for teardrop rapist. Dub teardrop rapist. What a great name to give someone in the community who is harming individuals throughout this council, throughout this city. It shows you that to offer a $75,000 award is like offering the Da Vinci a $175,000 reward. But the situation of payments here, as I've always showed interest, is why has the city not posed the problem? Why? What do you have to hide from your constituents and the public and the FBI? So again, the whole process of reaffirming by our city attorney to conduct business like this is ridiculous and in some circumstances hilarious, Mr. Dion.
Stay on the subject.
The subject of relative offer relative to sexual predators dubbed the teardrop rapist throughout the city of Los Angeles of April 25 from 2012, in addition to the period of 6 months from the publication to offer reward of this office, I find the city of Los Angeles unaware of its actions to protect its citizens And I call on the name of Batman to return to bring justice to a system that's corrupt, doesn't provide us with safety, public health.
Stay
and
on the
real
subject.
issue is, I hope you have your ears on. Thank you for your 3 seconds. 2.
All right, let's prepare to vote on this item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, let's move on to item 1.
Mr. President, before doing so, there's been a request to continue item 1E to February 4. Again, that's 1E to February 4th.
Okay, let me check here. Item 1E. All right, without objection. Okay, let's go Jack, maybe Koshandi.
Good morning, City Council. I have a commercial property in Hollywood, and last month one of my tenants handed me a paper that it shows that there's going to be a lien on the property for close to $3,000. And on the paper it says that I have to be here on January 6th. So I came January 6th here, and there was no session. Keep on calling, and we found out that the session has been moved to today. I have with me some of the papers that shows that what's safe building and safety is asking for. We have paid for it within the correct time. We paid for all the permits, and we finally got our finals right on time. So I'm just here to requesting that if that $3,000 lien that's going to be on my property can be removed or not to be put on the property.
Okay, Mr. Walsh. Followed by Eric Previn. Sir, we're gonna just stay right, and we'll get to you before we actually vote on that.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org, or J. Walsh Confidential. Just suffice it to say that you're going to hear from letter J, the 1028 North Broad Avenue lien for $3,227.68, and listen carefully. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Mr. Previn, Eric Previn.
Yes, it is Eric Previn, candidate for the City Council District 2 seat. And today, these item ones, I've had a chance to speak with some of the residents, and I wanted to alert the City Council to what's happening. In many situations, alleys, which are not owned by the resident, are getting dumped in, and then they're getting a fine, and the fine is escalating. I saw on one document for 1E, believe it or not, and Mr. Krikorian generously continued it 2 weeks, a $1,500 fine, a penalty on top of the charge for some issue that involved someone dumping in an alley that was not his property. This, to me, is intolerable. And in another case, the guy was, and that was item number J, I believe, he paid, and he took care of the problem, and yet there is this routine which is underway, and I think you all know it because you're proud of it, as it's the first page of every single city council meeting, but we are hammering local residents over things that are not in their charge, or their, I mean, it is their responsibility on some level, but we need to do better.
Thank you. Do we have Javier Valencia? Please come forward. Javier, followed by Mr. Herman. I'm still looking for Javier, and then Mr. Okala.
So you all heard, I believe Mr. Eric Previn is very correct in his honest opinion and making testimony regarding CD2 10616 West Rainer Street, Mr. Krikorian, for the $2,571 lien. On top of that note, the gentleman I spoke to earlier and tried to assist, as I was told to shut up by the Sergeant of Arms and mind my own business.
Stay on the subject.
1028 North Broadway Avenue, the lien for $3,227. I find it offensive that you threaten me from helping out the constituents here who have a need. You continue to bring up this bogus lien process. It's criminal. You're taking advantage and bribing these people. Extortion's the word. Extortion, extortion, extortion. You do more harm by your actions of not taking this lien out of the picture and dealing with your constituents. But what the hell do I know? What do I know about any of this?
Speak into the microphone.
In regards to the lien, and yet we continue to do more harm, injustice, and as acting predators, all of you are responsible for your actions. As of today, I say hold all these liens on the record, A through J, and allow the people to be here for their testimony. Send a certified letter letting them know that they have by this date and time to resolve the issue. Instead, you don't even give a voucher for free parking. You don't even give them a permit for free parking.
Stay
Mr.
on the
Speaker.
item.
So, in conclusion to all these thoughts, obviously, District 2, Mr. Krikorian, doesn't have a heart. So I plan to vote for a new councilman in District 2.
Thank you. Not on the subject. Okay. Mr. Akala.
Right down my aisle, you are a bunch of crooks that refuse to realize that this process is wrong. People finally get a chance to get a little place, a little business, a little something, and here is City Hall. I'm going to stick it to you with $1,357. I'm going to stick it to you with $472. I'm going to stick it to you with $3,189. And believe me, these people did not get proper warning. I know, because that is your damn fucking crooked process. It is ridiculous the way you run business. Who the fuck makes City Hall the landlord that is to throw out everybody and put everybody into apartments? Go to hell, City Hall. Continuing, lien for $2,781 just because you're the idiot that bought this place. Lien for $2,571. Where the hell do you think people get money to pay for all your assholey things that you're doing? Lien, $2,571. Again, lien, $3,464. Why don't you go ride that train that Brown is building all the way to hell? You know what I mean? A bullet train to run
Why
homeless
don't you
people
stay on
back
the subject?
And forth. Lien, $3,464. Obama, what the fuck is wrong with you? You don't address any of these items. Obama, we're in a
No, you're off subject now. Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. O'Farrell, it's my understanding you're disrupting. Mr. O'Farrell, it's my understanding you wanted to ask a question or two.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, if we could have Mr. Kalabala up to address item 1C and elaborate a little bit on the circumstances of that case.
Thank you so much. Morning, Council. My name is Charles Kalibala. I represent Department of Building and Safety on this item number 1C. This is in regard to a lien, a proposed lien by the Department of Building and Safety on property address 1107 North El Centro Avenue. This property is owned by Mr. Jack Corsand. I've had some communication with Mr. Jack, and we have failed to reach any agreement on the issues involved. The issues involved here are that the Department of Building and Safety identified code violations at this property on February 22nd, 2013, and Mr. Jacobson was given a compliance date of March 24th, 2013. The violations include included making remodels on the property without the required permits and approvals. That's a violation of the Los Angeles Municipal Code. Mr. Jack Cosant was notified of the same, but he failed to comply within time. He complied eventually after 8 months on December 10th, 2013. As a result of these violations, Mr. Jack Cosant incurred charges against his property, including non-compliance fees of $550, a late charge of $1,858, code violation investigation fees of $336, system development surcharge of $20, surcharge late fees of $50, accumulated interest of $341, and title report fee of $42, giving a total lien charge of $3,199.03. Unfortunately, the property owner has failed to make any payments against his property. He made some payments sometime back in April of 2013, but those don't count against the lien. So the department insists that all protests by Mr. Jack Cosant be dismissed and the lien confirmed against this property for $3,199.03.
Aside from the lien, what more does he need to do? Is there a late fee? Has he paid late fees, et cetera?
Yes, the amount includes late fees of $1,858.84. Apart from paying the bill, there's nothing else he has to do. All the violations are actually correct, unless he's disputing the violations. And for that, he has to talk to the inspector. Otherwise, all the violations are correct. He has complied, but he has failed to pay. So he's a delinquent property owner, and he needs to pay that amount as soon as possible. Otherwise, the department wants to put a lien against the property.
Okay, and there is no protest against the violations?
Well, his protest is that, no, there's no protest against the violations. His only protest is that he made a partial payment, and therefore there shouldn't be interest. But that's false, actually.
Okay. I mean, this case has dragged on since before I took office. You mentioned a couple of years ago, so.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Parks?
Thank you. I just would like to see the clerk would clarify something. Item 13, I think, identifies what we've already voted on, was a reward motion that was paid, and we keep hearing comments that we never paid them out, and I just thought you could read it for the record so the public will know that we do pay those out.
Very good, sir. Item 13. Council adopted the Public Safety Committee report relative to the payment of a reward for information leading to the identification, arrest, and conviction of the person responsible for the murders of Mr. Carlos Hernandez and Mr. Alejandro Garcia.
And that was in 09, right? The CF numbers 09.
Yes, sir. From March 13, 2009.
Okay. With that said, now let's vote on the remaining, or the item that is before us. Let us open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That brings us where, Mr. Clerk?
Mr. President, that brings council to general public comment.
All right, let us begin with Susie Meekins. Mr. Murphy.
Good morning,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. President and council members. My name is Susie Meekin of the community of Watts. For the last 40 years, the community of Watts has been robbed of all dignity, hopes, and allocated funds for projects and improvement by District 15 councilperson, past and present. And we are asking for a federal investigation for fraud, corruption, and misappropriation of government funds. The people they chose to work with do not represent the community, and we need a change. Thank you.
Thank you.
And these are
Thank you.
copies of letters.
Sergeants, could you get copies of her documents? Mr. Murphy, followed by Darrell Gale.
Hey, Mr. President, good morning, good afternoon. See, my TV ratings has picked up, huh? I enjoyed myself at the Kingdom Day Parade. And thank you for the compliments, Mr. President. I'd like Channel 35 to put away in archives forever. I'll tell you about February 3rd, 09. I'm ashamed of that tape. Put it away in archives until when I'm gone. Play it when I'm gone, 5-10 years later. Thank you.
Thank you. If I could have Gail, I'll let you say the first name, Darrell Gale, and Mr. Eric Previn. Yes.
Good morning. I'm Daryl Gale, environmental advocate. I'm here today to speak about the March for Climate Leadership. It's going to be Saturday, February 7th in Oakland. We in the environmental community are very happy with Governor Brown's goals to greatly reduce carbon emissions, but we are very disappointed because he is not addressing fracking. Fracking can also be considered acid washing, acidizing, gravel packing, as well as injecting large amounts of waters into the well. 5.4 million people in California live less than a mile from an existing oil well. Please come with us to Oakland, Saturday, February 7th. Go to marchforclimateleadership.org and protest in downtown Oakland to Governor Brown about fracking. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Previn, followed by Mr. Walsh.
Yes, it's Eric Previn, City Council District 2 candidate coming up. The election is in March. I would like the city attorney to respond, and I've asked Mr. Ibranesian from Mr. Krikorian's office to respond to the claim that the plan to put developer money into city lawsuits be re-agendized properly in compliance with the Brown Act. I've also asked for Mr. Krikorian, and he could take a moment today to address whether or not he will oppose, along with the residents of our community, the Harvard-Westlake Bridge over Coldwater proposal with giant lights and a 3-story parking garage in an open space that all the environmental groups and neighbors are against. There may be some people from Harvard-Westlake who are interested in that, and I don't blame them, but it is parking convenience versus the quality of lives of individuals in our community. And finally, tonight, the Young Democrats are meeting at the Sportsman's Lodge. So they will endorse Mr. Krikorian, and I encourage you all to come and
Thank you.
root him on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh, followed by Mr. Herman and Mr. Barajas.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. You're going to get a $75,000 reward for information leading to the mega arson at Da Vinci, when the LAPD said the day of the arson that it was not a criminal occurrence. What has happened? Here's the question no one will ask. Why is the FBI involved in this case when this isn't a federal building? No federal buildings were harmed. Why is the FBI in here? Why did the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms and explosives dogs find the accelerant that the LAPD said wasn't there? And I want to know, how about the insurance? And I don't want to say that I think that is the owner of the building a suspect. I'm asking, because he's put up $75,000 too. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Mr. Herman, Mr. Barajas, Mr. Marine.
Local government's corruption has been defined as the abuse of public power for the private and personal gain, as we all have heard, based on the definition of yesterday's inquiry by Mr. Herman in testimony. The corruption involves more than just burning the Da Vinci and asking for $175,000, but it takes into account that the FBI has done its job, and now we await to find out who's responsible and accountable. But again, taking advantage of services, stealing funds out of outrightness of the public, they may also use their position to gain favors, sexual, like Mr. Englander or others, But using public funds, I find it a vicious cycle as a result of governments to raise taxes to make up for such losses, in turn, more corruption.
Thank you, Mr. Barajas.
Thank you, Dion.
I read Susie Beacon's letter. I hope somebody gets on it because it really does exemplify the nature of our country, where people's policy from the top down is total genocide, which is what's happening in Watts, which is just typical of what's happening everywhere. So, my intention now is to actually resolve the issues by, as I've stated before, Glass-Steagall. We need to separate Wall Street from killing people. That's in the House, H.R. 381 by Marcy Kaptur. We have a lot of solutions to kickstart everything. We don't have to kill people. We don't have to run a country like a fascist state. But I do ask that all of you, Fuentes and Herb and everybody else, to talk to me.
Thank you. Mr. Marine, followed by Mr. Akala. Mr. Henry Marine.
Yes, as you notice, 1120 Funds has been around for a long time. And Janice Hahn and her new colleagues in Congress made it their duty to put the trustees of union benefit plans on the menu and make it clear that no public funds will be used for the benefit of trustees such as contractors, union officials, and the employees of union contractors. So you might as well just go get that money back and the interest due, because they can't use it. Now, what is your problem? 1,120 funds been put in those union banks. You ain't drawn a penny of interest. Why? You didn't come from underneath a rock, did you? In this country, you got to pay interest if you use somebody's money. There ain't no free money here. So when you're going to give them the notice, 90-day notice, to provide the money back.
Thank you,
Mr.
Akala. No applause, Mr. Herman. Go right ahead, Mr.
Well, I
Akala.
watched a little bit of the State of the Union. It's all a bunch of horse shit. You got the white Republicans on this side and the white Republicans on this side. And you have a few black people and hardly any brown people in the place, which means we are still awfully divided over race, which, talk to Oprah Winfrey. She's going to get an Oscar for her movie. How many years after Martin Luther King? Quite a few. And we haven't made much progress. Look at city council. Bunch of assholes that don't listen. Look at them talking to each other while the people talk to you. Fuentes and Englander. What the hell are you talking about? Can't you listen to your people? Fuck you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. LaBonge.
Just wanted to ask the city attorney to make note of that language. Thank you. Okay?
Okay, don't disrupt the meeting. Mr. City Clerk, what's before this body at this time?
Mr. President, Council has motions for posting and referral.
They are posted and referred.
The desk is clear.
I have no card from you, sir, so we're moving into announcements. You're disrupting the meeting at this point. No, you're just disrupting the meeting. Okay, announcements, members. Then why don't we all rise? Announcement, Mr. England? No, let's all rise. Everyone in the council chambers rise for adjourning motions, if I could have silence. Mr. Englander.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Now, anyway, you're disrupting the meeting. Officers, you may have to show him the door. Okay, let's try this again, Mr. Englander.
I'm going to wait. This is still being disruptive. So.
Yeah, the disruption is still taking place. Your public comment card has to be placed in before we begin taking public comment. No applause, Mr. Herman.
For the record, because the camera is not showing it, the officers are escorting the gentleman out.
Because of his disruption. Mr. Englander, why don't we try it again?
Thank you. We have I won't say it's an honor, the challenging opportunity to adjourn our meetings often for loved ones and family and constituents, city officials, elected officials, first responders. The hardest is, I think, for children. And we lost a 6-year-old, Seth Dunford, passed away at 11 a.m. on Monday, this past Monday, January 19th. And Seth was born on September 6, 2008. When he was 4 years old, he began having seizures, and it would be another year before he was finally diagnosed and they figured it out that he had Batten disease, a neurological disorder that over time it causes those children affected to suffer mental impairment and worsening seizures, progressive loss of sight and motor skills, and eventually children with Batten disease become blind, bedridden, demented, and before it finally takes their life. It's a horrible and horrific disease, not only for a child, but for a parent and that family to go through. Seth loved cars and music, movies. He loved Nemo. And Mr. Kretz, he loved all animals, especially his dogs, Casper and Buddy. Seth is survived by his mother, Rebecca, his younger sister, Michaela, along with his grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins, too numerous to mention. The family is asking that in lieu of flowers, that if anybody could, please make a donation and it be sent to Beyond Batten Disease, the foundation at batten.org. May this young angel from the city of Angels rest in peace. Thank you.
Well said. Other adjourning motions? Mr. O'Farrell? Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, a tragedy of national proportions happened in Armenia last week that has reverberations felt on our shores here in Southern California. It is with great sadness that I ask that we adjourn today's meeting in memory of the 7 members of the Avatisian family who were brutally murdered on Monday, January 12th, reportedly and now determinably by a Russian soldier in Armenia's second largest city of Gyumri. A 6-month-old baby boy, Sergei Avatisian, became the 7th member of the family on Monday to die of his wounds. This tragedy has thrown an entire nation into shock, and January 12th has been declared a national day of mourning in the Republic of Armenia. Armenia's law enforcement officials say the soldier, who has pled guilty, identified as Valery Permyakov, is their main suspect after military uniform boots with his name were found at the site. His motives remain unclear. Russia's defense ministry has confirmed that is the soldier who indeed went missing from his military base that was stationed near the city of Gyumri. I stand in firm solidarity with the people of Armenia and my own Armenian constituents in the 13th District, some of whom have family members in Gyumri. So many of my constituents, to so many of them, this tragedy has hit very close to home. I also join those who demand a swift and objective investigation to bring this culprit or other culprits to justice and face trial in Little Armenia. I also ask that we have a moment of silence in memory and also just in solidarity with the country of Armenia, who takes a crime like this so very seriously, as we all should. So I ask for that moment of silence. Thank you, colleagues, and may the members of the Efetisian family rest in eternal peace.
Mr. Labange.
Members, one of our sergeants of arms of years in the past passed, and tragically, we miss Norm Minodoro, who was here for many years and served the city well. This information was provided by our man Abak, so we thank him for that information. He's since retired, but he passed away at his home earlier this month. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other adjourning motions? Mr. Parks?
I have two adjourning motions to ask that we adjourn in memory of Kathy Joyce Norman, who passed away December 19, 2014, at the age of 56. She was born in November of 1958. She was the eighth of 10 children born in the small town in Mississippi, Bolton, Mississippi. She attended Lovett Elementary School, Bolton Agricultural Middle School, and Utica High School, all in Mississippi. She enjoyed reading and spent many hours in the library. Shortly after graduating from high school, she moved to California, where older siblings had migrated many years earlier. Her primary goal for moving to Los Angeles in California was to make a better life for her daughter and herself. Once settled in California, continued her education at Southwest College. She received her AA degree, but took numerous accredited courses while attending Central Baptist Church and through the city of LA, where she worked for the past 30 years. She attended Central Baptist Church under the tutelage of Pastor Keith, and she'd been there for over 30 years. While at Central Baptist, she worked diligently with the seniors, where she served as a senior ministry director and with the Women's Missionary Union. On Sunday, July 27, she was commissioned. Kathy also started the Children on Mission ministry. Her passion for seniors and children were obvious. She had a gift of service and always found helping in one capacity or another. Kathy loved her family unconditionally. She also started the Davis Family Breakfast. For many years, the family would gather in the first Saturday each month. She survived by her husband, Charles Norman, and a host of family members. Her services were held Saturday, December 27th. We also have a journey motion in memory of Hertzies Hewitt, who passed away December 4th, 2014, at the age of 96. She was born February 1918. She graduated from Central Colored High School. After graduation, she earned a living doing domestic work in various homes throughout Shreveport. She met and later married Bobby Lee Hewitt in December 1939. In 1939, she and her husband moved to Los Angeles. Upon their arrival, she earned a living working as a designer retail company called Theodore Handbags. After 10 years of making handbags, she passed a government civil service exam and started working for the Los Angeles Unified School District. She worked her way through the entry-level job and retired after 30 years as a cook. During her retirement, she enjoyed traveling and fishing throughout the United States. She's survived by her son, Limon, and a host of family members. Her funeral service also held in December 2014.
Thank you. Any more adjourning motions? I'm now looking to my left, seeing none. This meeting is adjourned.